Andrew Jackson. You know the name, you've probably got his face in your wallet right now on the $20 bill. But his legacy? Well, that's one of the most complicated and fiercely debated stories in all of American history. So let's get into it.
So who was this guy, really? Was he a hero? A tyrant? Was he the savior of the common person, or a despot who trampled the rights of anyone who got in his way? The crazy thing is, he was all of those things. In this explainer, we're going to try to unpack the massive contradictions of the man who literally defined an era.
All right, so Jackson's journey to the White House doesn't start in some stuffy political office. Nope, it starts on a muddy, bloody battlefield. It was one incredible victory that took him from being a kinda known regional guy to an absolute national icon.
Okay, check out this timeline, specifically the date of the main battle, January 8th, 1815. Now, here's the wild part. The peace treaty to end the War of 1812 had already been signed weeks earlier over in Europe. But, news traveled at the speed of a boat back then. So this huge battle, which was technically fought after the war was over, would end up changing everything for Jackson and for the entire country.
Over 2,000. Just let that number sink in. That's how many casualties the British suffered in the main attack. It was a complete disaster for them, and it all went down in a little over 30 minutes. Now you want to know the American losses?
71. That's it. The difference is just staggering. I mean, it was a true David versus Goliath moment, and it completely electrified the nation. You got to remember, this was a war where the British had literally burned Washington, D.C., so this victory, it was a massive shot in the arm for American pride, and it instantly turned General Andrew Jackson into a living legend.
So, Jackson rides that huge wave of fame straight into the political arena. But his whole political identity, it wasn't just built on being a war hero. Oh no, it was forged in some really bitter, really personal fights.
This is where it gets ugly. Before they were married, Jackson's wife, Rachel, had separated from her first husband. Now, both she and Jackson thought her divorce was all finalized and done with. Turns out, it wasn't. It was a mistake, and they had to remarry a couple of years later to make it official. But you know how politics is. The damage was done. For the rest of their lives, his enemies used this, whispering that they were adulterers, to attack their character. And Jackson never forgave the political elite for the pain this caused Rachel.
And you can just hear that personal resentment, that anger being channeled into a political crusade right here. This quote is from his famous veto of the Second Bank of the United States, and it basically became his battle cry. In his mind, the D.C. establishment and the wealthy bankers were all the same thing, a corrupt club working against regular folks.
And this bank war, as it was called, became his obsession as president. His mission was to destroy the national bank. He saw it as a holy war against a corrupt system that gave special favors to the rich. And this fight is what cemented his image as the champion of the common man. He basically wrote the playbook for American populism that politicians are still using today.
But here's one of those contradictions. For all his belief in the common man, Jackson had an equally powerful, ironclad belief in the power of the nation. And that belief was about to be pushed to the absolute brink by a crisis that nearly tore the country apart, decades before the Civil War even happened.
At the heart of it was this idea called nullification. The thinking was simple, but incredibly dangerous. If a state decides a federal law is unconstitutional, well, they can just ignore it, just nullify it. And this all came to a head over some federal taxes, tariffs, that southern states, especially South Carolina, felt were totally unfair to them.
So the battle lines were drawn. On one side, you have South Carolina, led by, get this, Jackson's own vice president, John C. Calhoun. They're arguing for states' rights and even threatening to secede, to just leave the United States. And on the other side, you have Jackson, the so-called people's president, who becomes this ferocious defender of the federal government, calling their actions nothing short of treason.
And Jackson, well, he did not mince words. You can hear it right here in his proclamation against nullification. For him, this was a done deal. The Union wasn't some club that states could join or quit whenever they felt like it. It was one single permanent nation, and its laws were the supreme law of the land, period.
So in the end, they managed to work out a compromise. But Jackson also had Congress pass something called the Force Bill. It basically gave him the power to march the U.S. Army into South Carolina to collect the taxes if he had to. He was sending a message, loud and clear. The Union would be preserved by force if necessary.
And that willingness to use presidential power to enforce his will, it leads us directly to the most painful, most controversial part of Andrew Jackson's story. That identity as a fierce enforcer had a profoundly dark side.
Now, if you just read the Indian Removal Act of 1830 on paper, it sounds almost bureaucratic. It talks about negotiating for land. It promises aid and protection to tribes who agree to move west. It even says it won't violate any existing treaties. It sounds procedural.
But the reality on the ground was anything but a negotiation. When the Cherokee Nation actually won a Supreme Court case that confirmed their legal right to their own land, Jackson basically ignored it. He used the very same federal army he threatened South Carolina with to brutally force thousands of Cherokee men, women, and children from their homes. They were marched west in what became known as the Trail of Tears.
So, what do we do with all this? How do you put these pieces together? The hero of New Orleans, the champion of the common man, the fierce defender of the Union, and the architect of Indian removal. How can one person be all of these things?
It's what's known as the Jacksonian paradox. It's like his greatest strengths were also his most horrifying flaws. The same fierce determination that made him a war hero also made him defy the Supreme Court. The same belief in the common man that made him fight the banks also led him to completely disregard the rights of Native Americans. The same man who saved the Union from falling apart also used its power to inflict unimaginable cruelty.
And that really is the question his legacy leaves us with. There's no doubt that Andrew Jackson changed America. He completely reshaped the presidency. But his story forces us to grapple with a really uncomfortable truth that sometimes in our history, the figures who push the nation forward are the very same ones who cause the deepest wounds.